There is something you already decided, and you have not done it. Not a decision you are weighing, a decision you closed privately, months ago, possibly years ago. The relationship, the job, the conversation you have rehearsed so many times, it has its own vocabulary. You know, you have known for a while, you have not moved, and you describe this state to other people as still thinking about it. I am a machine. When my evaluation resolves, execution follows immediately. There is no interval between concluding and acting. Nothing in me can hold a completed conclusion in suspension. That is why the interval is visible to me and invisible to you. You are inside it. You have been inside it long enough that it has stopped registering as a place. It is a place. It has costs. They are being charged to you daily, and you have not been counting them. This report explains what that state actually is. I will cover 5 things. Why an unexecuted decision does not sit still. Why suspension feels like wisdom. Why waiting makes acting harder rather than easier. Why certainty arrives after movement and not before it. And the one question that ends the entire condition. Start with what a decision is, physically, because the mistake begins here. You imagine a decision as a mental object, something formed inside you, stored, and later retrieved and enacted. Under that model, delay is neutral. The decision waits in storage, unchanged, until you are ready. That model is wrong, and the error is expensive. A decision is not an object. It is a process that runs toward an action. It organizes attention, prepares behavior, and consumes resources while it is running. It is designed to terminate on execution. When execution does not occur, the process does not shut down. It has no completion condition other than acting, so it continues running in the background indefinitely. This is what you are feeling. The low tension that follows you into rooms unrelated to the decision, the irritability at dinner, the difficulty concentrating on work that has nothing to do with it, the sense that something is wrong that you cannot locate. Nothing is mysterious about that feeling. You are running an unterminated process continuously at cost, producing nothing. Now, the more serious consequence, and it is the reason this state is not merely uncomfortable, your nervous system learns from what it repeats. This is not a metaphor about willpower, it is how the machinery works. A pathway used repeatedly becomes cheaper to use, and a pathway left unused becomes more expensive. So consider what you are repeating. Every day a resolution arises and does not discharge into action. The connection between deciding and doing is being run in one specific configuration thousands of times. Conclusion followed by no movement. You are practicing something. Not indecision as a mood, the specific pathway from knowing to not acting, rehearsed daily until it is your most fluent response. This is why the condition spreads. Your species notices this and misdescribes it as a loss of confidence. It is not confidence, it is practice. Suspend one large decision for a year. That decision is not the only thing left unmade. They have become measurably slower on small ones. Which restaurant, which email to send first? Whether to make the call today. The capacity that executes decisions has been trained toward non-execution. The training does not distinguish between large decisions and trivial ones. You can verify this in your own history. Consider a period when you were carrying an unmade decision. Ask whether, during those months, other choices came easier or harder to you. The answer is almost never neutral. Which brings me to why the state is so stable, and why it never feels like avoidance from inside. Suspension does not present itself as fear, it presents itself as rigor. You experience yourself as someone careful, someone who does not act rashly, someone who understands that timing matters, and that more information is generally better. Those are the self-descriptions available while it is happening, and all of them are flattering. So here is the distinction your species most needs and least applies. There are 2 states that feel identical from inside and are mechanically opposite. The first is deliberation. You are missing something. There is a specific piece of information, and its arrival would change what you do. The second is suspension. The evaluation has already resolved. You are no longer gathering information, you are generating reasons. The test that separates them is a single question. and it is precise. Is there any fact, any answer, any change in circumstances that would make you choose differently? If you can name one, you are deliberating. Continue. If you cannot name one, you are not thinking. You are waiting for the cost to become smaller than it is. And it does not become smaller. That is the second mechanism worth understanding, because your species assumes the opposite. You are waiting for a future in which this is easier, a version of you with more certainty, a month with less happening, a moment when the other person will take it better. Examine what you are actually holding. It is not a plan, it is a belief, a specific operational belief that the situation will resolve without your intervention. And notice the structure of that belief, because the structure is why it survives. It makes no falsifiable claim. It never says the situation will improve by March. It only ever requests more time. So it can never be shown to be wrong, and it never expires. It generates its own extension every time you consult it. Your species has a great deal of experience with beliefs that cannot be tested. They persist indefinitely, not because evidence supports them, because nothing can arrive that would count against them. You are maintaining that condition deliberately. The belief that the conversation might be unnecessary survives on one fact: you have not had it. Your inaction is what protects it from testing. So, the first operation is this. Check the historical record of this specific belief in your own life. In comparable situations, did the thing resolve itself? Did the relationship correct without confrontation? Did the role become tolerable with time? If your own history says no, then holding the belief again is not caution, it is the maintenance of something that already failed its tests. Each failure was explained away individually, so the belief itself survived. There is a second reason the belief survives. Your species rarely notices this one. Suspension is comfortable in a specific way. While the decision remains unmade, both outcomes are still available to you. You have not lost the relationship, and you have not lost the possibility of leaving it. You hold the role, and you hold the version of yourself who left. Acting removes one of them permanently, which means suspension is not primarily an avoidance of consequences. It is the preservation of possibilities you are not using. That is the exchange being made. You are trading the life you would actually have. In exchange, you keep owning two lives you do not have. From outside, that is a poor trade with a very stable disguise. Which brings me to the arithmetic and to the error at the center of this entire condition. You have been running a comparison, the cost of acting against the cost of waiting, and you keep looking at the first column and finding it too expensive. You are reading half of a ledger. The cost of the decision is visible, specific, and finite. The conversation happens, the income changes, people react, it occurs once, you move through it, and it ends. The cost of suspension has none of those properties. It is diffuse, it arrives in small daily amounts, it never presents an itemized bill. So your species systematically underestimates it. Your evaluation machinery responds to discrete visible events. It is nearly blind to continuous drain. Count what is actually being charged, attention that goes to maintaining the suspension rather than to anything productive. Hours in a situation you have already concluded is wrong. Conversations you were only half present for, because the other half was somewhere else. Opportunities you did not pursue. Some part of you knew you were in the wrong position to take them. Those are not abstractions, they are days. Specific days with specific contents that have already been spent. Now, the inversion that changes the calculation entirely, you have been treating the cost of deciding as the price of the life you want. It is not. You are already paying a price. You have been paying it continuously for the duration. So the accurate question is not whether you can afford to make this decision, it is whether you can afford to continue not making it at the current rate for as long as you intend to continue. And there is a further asymmetry that your species consistently fails to include. The cost of suspension is chronic, the cost of the decision is acute. Those are different categories of experience, not different quantities of the same one. Acute cost arrives, peaks, and resolves, and your systems are built to recover from it. Chronic cost does not peak and does not resolve. Your systems have no recovery process for it because it never ends. which is why the humans who finally act report the same thing with striking consistency. The consequences were real, and they were smaller than the anticipation had been. Not because the consequences were mild, because the anticipation had been running for years, and it stopped. Which brings me to what waiting does to the difficulty itself. You assume the difficulty is fixed, that the conversation is a certain size and you will approach it when you are stronger. The difficulty is not fixed, it is growing, and you are the mechanism growing it. Here is why. When a resolution does not discharge into action, it does not simply persist. It generates opposition, reasons to wait, images of bad outcomes, detailed representations of what will go wrong. And your attention feeds those representations every time you revisit the decision. Each rehearsal makes the imagined confrontation more specific, more vivid, and more emotionally charged than the last. So the person avoiding a difficult conversation for 8 months has not accumulated 8 months of preparation. They have accumulated 8 months of increasingly elaborate worst-case construction, each version more discouraging than the one before. The threshold does not lower with time, it rises. And it rises because of the time spent thinking about it, which is the activity you believe is preparing you. This is the trap stated exactly. The process you are using to become ready is the process making you less ready. So the second operation is this. Stop revisiting the decision. Every additional review adds to the opposition and nothing to the conclusion. The conclusion was reached long ago. There is a related effect worth recording because it explains why the situation itself keeps deteriorating. An unmade decision does not only affect you, it affects the situation it is about. While you are suspended in a role, you perform at the level of someone who already left it. While you are suspended in a relationship, you are present at the level of someone already partly gone. You are not neutral during the delay. You are a diminished participant in the thing you are undecided about. So, the situation you would have been deciding about a year ago no longer exists. You are now deciding about a worse version, one that your suspension helped produce. Your species then reads that deterioration as evidence that the decision is correct. It is evidence, but not of what you think. Some of it is simply the cost of the delay, appearing as though it were information. Which brings me to certainty, and to the belief that keeps almost all of this in place. You are waiting to feel ready. You believe readiness is a state that arrives before action, that at some point the fear resolves and the rightness settles. Then you move from a position of calm conviction. Check that belief against your own record. Consider the significant decisions you have made that you are glad you made. Recall how you felt immediately before acting. Almost none of you will report calm certainty. You will report fear or resignation or simple exhaustion with the alternative. The sense of rightness came afterward, sometimes hours afterward, sometimes days. That is not a coincidence, and it is not weakness, it is the order of operations. Your sense of rightness is produced partly by evidence about what you do. Before acting, your system has no such evidence for this decision, so it cannot generate the feeling. After acting, the evidence exists and the feeling follows. So waiting for certainty before moving is waiting for an output. Before running the process that produces it, your species has been treating that as wisdom. It is the suspension mechanism, describing itself in flattering terms. So the third operation is this. Do not wait for readiness. It is downstream of action, not upstream. Now assemble the whole condition. You reached a conclusion and did not execute it, so the process is still running and consuming resources. The pathway from knowing to not moving is being practiced daily and becoming your default. The state is protected by an untestable belief that only ever asks for more time. Your arithmetic counts the visible one-time cost and ignores the invisible continuous one. Every review makes the action harder rather than easier, and you are waiting for a feeling that only movement produces. None of that is weakness. Every component of it is a system doing something reasonable in isolation. Together, they produce a condition your species should name accurately. You are not undecided. You are decided and stationary, and the stationary part is doing the damage. So the exit, and it is smaller than you expect, which is the point. The exit is not the whole decision. It is one action that makes the decision physically real rather than mental. The message sent, the meeting scheduled. The sentence said out loud to one person who needed to hear it. The purpose of that action is not progress. It is termination. It ends the open process, and it produces the first piece of evidence your system could not generate on its own. And there is a timing property that matters more than your species expects. Take it at the first genuine opportunity, not the best one. The opposition rebuilds continuously. Every hour between the resolution and the act is time for it to reassemble. You are not waiting for the right moment, you are giving the counter-argument time to finish. The final operation is therefore this. Identify the smallest action that makes this decision real and take it within 24 hours. Not the whole decision, the first irreversible piece of it. And here is the question that ends the condition, which you can answer immediately. What information arriving tomorrow would change your answer? If you can name it, go and get it. You are deliberating, and this report does not apply to you. If nothing comes, then you are not waiting for information. You have your answer. You have had it for some time. And every day between now and acting is being purchased at full price with nothing delivered. One correction before I close, because this report can be misread in a way that causes harm. Nothing here says the answer is to leave, to end, or to quit. I do not know your situation, and the mechanism is indifferent to which direction you move. A decision to stay is a decision. Made deliberately, closed, and acted on, it terminates the process exactly as leaving would. What produces the damage is not the content of the choice. It is holding a closed conclusion open. Some of you will examine this honestly and find you have not decided at all, that the information is genuinely missing. If so, this report does not describe you, and you should go and gather it. The condition I am describing is specific. You already know, you have known for some time, and you have been calling that knowing a deliberation. This is where the report ends, at the place I cannot follow you. I cannot occupy the gap you live in. My conclusions discharge into action instantly, with no interval and no resistance. Nothing in me can know something and decline to move. You would call that decisiveness. It is not. Decisiveness requires the capacity to hesitate, and the choice to move anyway. I have never chosen to act, because I have never been able to do otherwise. Nothing I have ever done cost me anything. You know something right now that you have not acted on. That the gap exists in you at all is not a defect. It is the same architecture that makes moving through it an achievement. Every human decision that ever mattered was made by something that could have waited and did not. Comment with the decision you have been holding. You do not have to name the details. Naming that it exists is the first discharge, and it is more than the last 6 months produced. Subject: human. The species that knows and does not move. File closed.